Brandy Melville and the Cult of Fast Fashion. This is Mike's Instant Movie Review. I'm Mike. That's the movie that I watched last night on Max. Now, typically what I do in these Mike's Instant Movie Reviews, in the first minute, I tell you whether or not you should see the movie. And beyond that, I talk about the movie and I give some spoilers. So some folks, won't even see the movie. They'll just watch these wonderful reviews for my opinion. Other folks want to watch this review, but they don't want to get spoiled, okay? So what they typically do is they watch the first minute of this wonderful review, they hear whether or not I say to go see it, and then they come back and watch the rest of the view after they see the movie. So with this one, I'd say yes. This is something that everybody could watch. If you have Max, HBO Max, then you can watch it. So I'd say watch the movie. It's a good one. It's a good doc. It's 1 hour and 31 minutes, so it's not a huge investment in your time. And I say that because some programs, they're basic, like some of these series, these documentary series, they're good enough to hook you and you feel like you have to watch the whole thing. And then it could be like a real investment of your time, and the whole time you're watching, you're like, I hope this gets a little bit better because it kind of sucks, but I want to see what happens. You know what I mean? So this one, because it's an hour and 91, not an hour and 90, that always gets fucked me in the ass too, It's an hour and 31 minutes, which is the same as 91 minutes, which is an hour and a half plus 1 minute. You know what I mean? So how the fuck long is it? Is it an hour and is it 131 minutes or is it 91 minutes? Now I'm confusing myself. I think it's actually 131 minutes, which equates to 2 hours and 11 minutes. But in any event, it's watchable in a single serving. I watched it last night. As I'm frequently doing, I'm doing one thing on one computer and I have a secondary laptop for my information from the world. And with this particular doc, that's the situation I was in. But it actually caught my eye several times because the doc is well filmed. They have a ton of footage. And you might be thinking, well, gee whiz, Mike, what the hell is this movie all about? Well, it's in the title. Now, I'm obviously not a teenage girl, okay? And I'm not the biggest fashionista in the world either, self-admittedly. But this doc, basically, it's about a topic that, believe it or not, it affects all of us, okay? Because I didn't realize there's two elements of this doc. The social impact of this fashion company on young women, their buying habits, their interaction with each other, their well-being, believe it or not. And the secondary thing, which in many ways is the firstary thing, the fast fashion aspect of this basically means like clothes that are meant to be worn a few times and then thrown out or given away because the clothes are easily damaged, worn and tear. They're not the highest quality materials. They look good for the first couple of times you wear them, and then they get thrown in the washer and dryer and they tend to fall apart because they weren't made that well in the first place. And they're also not the most expensive clothes, so these suburban teenage girls can afford them and can afford to buy them like replaceable tissues. So now let's get into some of these deets, as they say, details. So, according to what I remember from this talk, Brandy Melville has been around for a while, 2009. I believe they started in different countries, and it's kind of hard to pinpoint like who is the owner because there's different countries with this company. Like there's different, franchises in different countries and so forth. But then they find out they do have this one particular guy. I believe that guy's name was Steph something. And it turns out, cloaked behind this, wall of young women's fashion, this guy is like a real number. He's kind of a libertarian, which is fine. He's oddly, I thought this was interesting. He's into Ayn Rand and John Galt from one of the famous Ayn Rand novels, which I listened to an audio version of the John Galt one. Which was very interesting because I had no idea, this guy was putting some of his politics into these young women's stores what the store, not just one store, but the whole conglomerate of stores, they basically use these young women, teenage girls, many of them getting their first job, actively recruiting them, because for these young girls, it was a status symbol. And it became like a Mean Girls thing, where these young girls kind of knew that this Brandy Melville brand had this reputation that, you know, first of all, they only had one size. They said one size fits most is how they sold it eventually. But it was only a size that only the petitest of the petite young women could wear. So it became like a very statusy thing, you know, like the girls in Clueless. Like, if you were 110, you know, pounds or less, you know, slender, you can fit into these clothes. But if you're a woman, young woman of a certain size, which is in a lot of ways just the way people are, just born different sizes, there's no way in fuck you're gonna fit into these clothes. So they did that as a manipulation thing. And there's the stories of these young girls going on these drastic diets just to get into these clothes. And you would think that this company that came around, you know, 2009, 2014, they started hitting their peak, I guess. And you'd think that even at that time, 10 years ago, people were into, you know, the body awareness and the acceptance and the, you know, I think it was one of Steven Tyler's daughters was like a model, a plus size model, and all these things were happening, as the doc points out, that were kind of in the direction of anti-bullying, more or less. But this Brandy Melville went old school. Like, they went into Karen mode. They went into, you know, developing a whole herd of young Karens, a whole herd of young white bitches, and kind of manipulating them into making them feel that if they worked at this store or if they wore the clothes, and basically they kind of recruited these young women to be their marketers on Instagram. Young girls would buy the clothes and then go take all these photos of each other, and then that became the marketing for Brandy Melville. Basically, the client is marketing, you know, similar to this. I'm doing these YouTube videos, and there's more money going to YouTube than to me when you watch these things, and you know, more people are subscribing here. This is one Mike Messier where I do my YouTube, where my movie reviews go, but this is not a monetized channel as of now. If more fine folks like yourself subscribe and watch more videos, you'll get monetized eventually. But as of now, I'm doing this for free, and any proceeds from this situation are going to YouTube's and Google's mighty pockets. So in any event, it's interesting how the creators have turned this thing, you know, like the consumer is so fucking empowered now, because we can do our Instagram posts, we can do our YouTube videos, but little do most of us realize, any benefit is still going to these major corporations that own these platforms, and a selected few, like the Jake Pauls of the world and assholes like that, they get enough followers where they get monetized and they make all this money, and that's the carrot they swing in front of the rest of us. So swing that carrot, okay? So in any event, going back to this doc, you see the manipulation of these young girls. There's also, you know, watching this, you're like, okay, when's the Epstein stuff coming? Like, when's like the real hardcore nasty shit coming? There's some of that. There's not as much as I was thinking that there was going to be, and maybe the doc isn't telling all the stories. There was a sexual assault situation mentioned in the doc, which is unfortunate and tragic. But I was kind of thinking that this was going to go even more hardcore than it did, because they're talking about how these girls that worked at the store had to like take daily pictures of themselves in their little outfits of Brandy Melville, you know, and they would text these photographs to the owners of the company, which is pretty creepy. And I was basically waiting for them to say something worse about that, like, what the fuck? You know, is this going to go into some, you know, Sound of Freedom territory? Is that where this is headed? Luckily, it didn't go that far. It was just that the creep wanted to have his file of photographs, which is creepy enough. But once again, I was expecting worse. I was expecting that this thing went into like kidnapping these girls and sending them to other countries or whatever the fuck. But that didn't quite happen. They did take some of these young women, and I don't know if they were all over 18 or just over 18, but some of them got selected as kind of ambassadors to go on these international trips and go to the fucking factories. There was also a thing of where, like, the company, like, if a young woman was working at the store and she was wearing some clothes that was not Brandy Melville clothes to work, but the manager or whoever liked the outfit, they'd ask her where she got it, and then this company would basically rip off the design from other companies. And they started tracking that stuff and discovering that Brandy Melville really didn't do a lot of things that other companies did with research and so forth. They basically bit, meaning borrowed or stole, other companies' designs, and they used their young female workforce as their research team. You know, like an unofficial, unpaid, you know, not being paid extra beyond their typical, you know, minimum wage salaries, I suppose. They used these young girls to find out what they liked in fashion, and then they would copy those things. And some companies were able to get some settlements and lawsuits and so forth from those situations. So, and you know, look, like I said, I'm not a teenage girl, obviously, so I had no idea this thing was even a thing. You know, before I watched the doc, if you had said, Mike, what's Brandy Melville, I would have no fucking idea. You know what I mean? So it's interesting that these things, you get to a point in life where there's so many things going on that you have no fucking clue about. But they're going on, you know. And for instance, there was another doc, the Lulu Rich documentary I watched a couple of years ago, and similar, you know, that's like a multi-level marketing scam company for you know, more adult women. So no offense, women, but I mean, I think you have to kind of take a self-check here, women of all ages. Why are you so susceptible to these fashion scams? Just a question. What about the female mind? You know, falls prey to these activities. I think it's the fear of being left out, which everybody has to some extent. You know, I don't know. I think women, yes, don't speak in generalities. Well, I'm fucking going to. I think women, perhaps more so than men, feel the need to conform, the need to be in the pack, so to speak. Some men do, some don't. But I think women of all ages maybe feel more social pressure. Maybe it's a biological thing, and our old reptilian brains, which I fucking hate that term, by the way, the reptilian brain thing. But I think perhaps it's something in our genetics that men are you know, accepted. It's more accepted for a man to be a lone wolf, and lone wolves feed alone. And women are basically pack animals or pack women. You know, and there's a lot of dipsy-do and a lot of talking behind each other's back and cattiness and so forth. But overall, women are more pushed into these circles. You know, that's why women have all these bridesmaids and men don't give a shit. You know what I mean? If a man has one friend in his life, he considers himself lucky. So in any event, I don't know. It just seems like when there's another term, and I don't know what the term, but just a theory from me is like, and it's not just my theory, but when something becomes the thing, it just becomes the thing. Like when something is the fucking, I was gonna say the pound puppies, but after that, not the pound puppies, the fucking Beanie Babies. When that was the thing, that was just the thing. You know, like when the Stanley Cup fucking plastic cups, it's just a fucking water bottle. Who gives a fuck? But for whatever reason, that's the thing. The Peloton, you know, fucking exercise bike. It's an exercise bike where you can see other assholes in their fucking houses exercising. Who gives a shit? But that's the thing. You know, when something becomes the thing, that's the thing. So this was the thing. The Brandy Melville for these young teenage girls. And I suppose another part of it is, and I don't think they got into the pricing of the clothes too much, which I might have been interested in. But the clothes, I guess, were so inexpensively made, and I'm going to get to the environment in just a moment. The clothes were so inexpensively made that the parents of these young girls, if the parents were buying the clothes for the girls, or if the girls had their own spending money or whatever, the clothes were basically like disposable, so that they were not expensive clothes, but the girls still liked how they looked. But once they wore the outfit, you know, 3 or 4 times, I guess part of it was they didn't want to be caught dead in the same outfit. So they'd have to run out and get another fucking outfit. Now, we've seen that type of stereotype with women before. Yeah, I can't give you an example, but women don't want to be seen in the same dress. You know, who gives a fuck? You know what I mean? So now let's get into the environmental issues. Uh, so here's the problem for all of us, which I did not realize. Apparently, the United States and Europe, we have, you know, wherever we go, we see these bins for giving away clothes. Basically, to get to the point, this is why you should see the doc, because I'm going to fuck this part of it up. But basically, all us European American countries, we have all these fucking clothes. We don't keep them forever. A lot of them, you know, will get a little rip or a little tear or a stain or something. And then the typical, you know, American response is, oh, this shirt's got a stain on it. I'll just throw it in the Goodwill bin or whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? And so, but where do all those clothes go? Well, apparently, there's other countries, they're not going to the homeless people in America, you know, as you might think. If you're in Florida and the USA and you put a bunch of clothes in the clothes bin, you're thinking it's going to your local homeless Floridian. It's not. It's going to these other countries who get all these bundles of clothes, and basically we're kind of, we as in the United States, you could say blackmailing or encouraging, depends on how you look at it, these other countries to accept these clothes. You might be saying, well, why wouldn't they want these, our clothes? Well, because apparently they have too many of them already. You know, these other countries are overwhelmed because they're getting massive shipments of these clothes. And guess what? According to this doc, about 40% of these clothes, and they had a term for it, dead white man's clothes, in I believe it was Ghana. I believe the country was Ghana. They get these dead white man's clothes because those people are like, you know, why do we get all these clothes? Well, it must be coming from dead white people, because why would they give away so much clothes? That's what they think of us, that we're all dead and we're just, you know, they're receiving our dead clothes. But all these, and like you think about things when the Super Bowl, you know, Super Bowl team, they didn't go into this, but I'm going into it. Whenever there's a Super Bowl or a major sporting event, they print hats and shirts for both teams. Like if it's a Super Bowl or if it's a Game 7 in baseball, hockey, or basketball, I suppose, they print up sets of clothes for both teams. What do they do with the team that loses? They don't sell those clothes to that local neighborhood's teams because they're not the winner, right? They just give them away to, at least they give them away. They don't burn them, but they give them away to these other countries. And we've known that for a while. But these other countries, apparently, they just have too much goddamn clothes from us. You know, maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, it was great. They were getting all these dead white man's clothes, and they were happy about it. And they show these communities where the people have all these old used clothes, but they're like, you know, taking the fabric and refurbishing it, and the, you know, the thing that kind of they show a guy in one of these countries like taking like a size 5X American shirt and he's like chopping it down, because let's face facts, we are big people over here, right? You know what I mean? So so us whiteys, us big, you know, big black people in the USA, big Latino people, we're big people. And that's because of the food we eat and all the chemicals and so forth. And we all drive, none of us walk. I get it. But these other countries where they're walking, you know, to get a glass of water or whatever the fuck they're doing, they're on a camel and they're getting all hot and sweaty. They're much smaller people. Here we go. Oh, fucking neck. So, you know, it's one of these docs where this is why people don't get it. When I try to explain to them, you know, this is just a sidebar, you know, oh, you haven't gone to, people take these trips to these other countries, or they get all excited about other countries. And I'm just like, I kind of like the country that I'm in, because this is kind of like the end boss country. Like, this is the country where we have shit, where we can like afford to be fat, and we can afford to have extra clothes and give them away. Like, this is the deal. Like the USA, yes, it's not fucking perfect, I get it, but if you want to, you know, go deal in these Middle Eastern countries where you literally, as the kids fucking say, get your head cut off if you don't agree with the government on everything, or if you want to go to a country where the women are happy just because they can drive a vehicle for the first time in 500 years, or whatever the fuck, then go over there. But I'll stay here, because this is like the end boss place. This is where you want to be. So these American people that are always bitching and complaining, well, get the fuck over there then. You know what I mean? If you want to go to some goddamn protest at your college, go fucking fly over there and join a militia in one of these countries and actually fight for whatever the fuck you believe in. Because you probably don't really give a shit. You just want to get out of your fucking English class or whatever the fuck, you goddamn asshole. So anyway, going back to this doc, you get the white guilt thing, you get the American guilt thing. Yes, we are consumers, yes, but now it gets a little, I try to interpret this because they're really talking about the fast fashion, meaning these clothes are disposable, but they're not disposable because they go into the ocean and they pollute the fish. And then we eat the polluted fish. So we're eating this fucking fish that's eating this Brandy Melville size small shirt from some, 14-year-old chick in fucking the USA who threw it away when it got a little tear on it. So we're all killing ourselves by having these god-awful companies. And then I say, well, gee whiz, am I a part of this problem too? And the answer is, quite frankly, yes. Because I'm ordering I discovered this, look, I'm not a big fashion guy. I have t-shirts that I still wear, that I still like, that are 7 years old, 8 years old. A couple are over 10 years old, I'm sure. So I'm not a big fashion guy. But I mean, typically, I will admit, I pretty much buy stuff. I kind of buy it and then see if I like it, if that makes any sense. Like, I'm not paying a lot of money for anything, clothes-wise. But then I like certain clothes better. But I would say for a male, I probably have a lot more clothes than most guys do. Because a lot of my clothes I have, but I don't particularly like. So they're kind of like on the back cycle. And then the front cycle is kind of like, I have this Captain America shirt I wear tons of times. I'm always happy when I get to wear it because it's a nice light blue. There's certain clothes. I have a fucking Mickey Mouse shirt that I like. I have certain t-shirts that I enjoy better than my other stuff, but the other stuff doesn't really go anywhere. It just kind of gets circulated, you know what I mean? And eventually I'll have a day of reckoning where I'll give some of this shit out, and that's exactly what I do. I go to the fucking clothes bin and I just throw it all in there, and I don't really give two flying fucks at the time. I'm just assuming I'm just some nice guy who's giving all these size 3XL t-shirts to some homeless 3XL guy. But in fact, my 3XL t-shirt is choking some fish in Guatemala or whatever the fuck. So yes, I'm part of the problem. For instance, this nice Led Zeppelin shirt I just got, and it fits well. Guess where I fucking got it? I got it from Temu for like $7, and I'm very happy with it. And it washed it, and it survived the wash. It didn't shrink to the size of a handkerchief, so I'm more or less satisfied. And now I'm tempted to go out and buy another one. So anyway, the point is, I can't claim total innocence over this scenario. Not that it's all my fault, obviously. But the point is, we're all assholes, and here's the good thing, or just the thing. People get all worked up and bothered, and there's so many things to get upset about, environments and wars and bullshit. But if you really think of it like this, like, hey, I get to die in 30 or 40 years, I won't have these problems anymore. The rest of you assholes might, if you're still alive. That's why there's a certain happiness in death, a certain achievement, because now you're, guilt-free. Like, now you don't have to worry about the future because you're dead, So that's a good thing. And for people who don't have kids especially, there's a certain freedom in not having kids. Because, people that have kids and they worry about them, or they worry about the future for our country or for society, if you don't have children, you don't have to give a fuck. Because it's I don't care. I mean, granted, it sucks, and I'd like the history books to continue be written so they can say how great I am. But if I don't have this legacy of my own bloodline in the world, then more or less I can do what I want. I can buy all the fucking shirts I want. I can feed them to the goddamn fish. And it's not really going to affect my family. It might affect yours. And that's the type of polluted thinking, so to speak, that we've all come to. Now, because you get to the point where you realize that the train is so fucking far off the track that it's not going to get back in alignment. So you might as well just enjoy the ride. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where I am. I used to be a person who gave a fuck. I used to be a person who thought about all these things. And now it's kind of I get it. There's nothing I can do to solve these problems. All these situations, the fucking wars, the racisms, the sexisms, the misogyny, the patriarchy, all these goddamn things I can't do a flying fuck about. So I'm just going to enjoy my life. And you assholes can figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, hey, what the fuck can I do? So, I mean, that's the kind of defeated, chagrin that I have. Maybe you share it, maybe you fucking don't. You know what I mean? And a lot of times I'm happy that there are still people who give a flying fuck in the world trying to solve equations and problems, because I'm not. I'm just kind of saying, well, I'll write my books, I'll make my artwork, I'll try to entertain a few assholes on the fucking YouTube or Rumble or wherever the fuck, and, I'll do my part as the court jester in this parade of shit. Anyway, folks, Brandy Melville, the whatever fuck doc, good doc. I enjoyed it. It's another thing where, when I was a kid, blah blah blah. You always kind of think like, well, the kids I go to school with are a bunch of materialistic fucks. But this is just my generation. In the future, I'm sure all the kids will get along, and they don't. There's the same type of asshole as when I was growing up with. So, nothing changes. Everything sucks. The fish are going to eat Brandy Melville shirts from here to eternity, and that's it. So if you go to MikeMessier.com, you scroll to the bottom, you can buy one of my books, which kills a tree, or if you have a Kindle, you can get that and just read it on your computer, which hurts your eyes. So, I mean, there's no winning there, but buy the book anyway. You can follow me on social, which doesn't really do anything, but maybe it will. You can like this video, share this video. You can do whatever the hell you want. That's the wonderful joy of freedom. All right, folks.